You don't want me to sing.
So look at how we're starting already. Bloopers after a year later. Already started with bloopers. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of You're Beautiful. And today I'm joined with the lovely Melissa Georgioff.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I think that I've been pursuing you to come on the podcast, and I'm so grateful that you are here. We got so many exciting things to talk about today. I got my technical difficulties.
No problem.
So, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is kind of what life is about. Life is about, like, we live. Do you still live in Bethalto?
I do.
Okay. So we've lived in Bethalto for quite some time. My daughter and your daughter went to school together. Our kids have went through the Bethalto School District. So just because I know of Melissa, I could tell you that in the next hour, I'm going to get to know you more, and I'm so looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it, too.
Yes. So, folks, love thy neighbor. Every time we talk about this, just because you live next door to someone, have you actually ever stopped to check on them? I mean, do you know, like I could tell you this right now, when people look at Brian Trust, did they even know that I love Jesus? Because they usually know me as the DJ who, you know, you got a dolly out of a bar sometimes, you know?
Sure.
But it's okay to have a flesh life. The number one thing, though, is, and the most important thing that I share this podcast with you, is encouraging you to have an intimate relationship with Jesus. We say it all the time, and I'm sure Melissa will agree with me. Have you had friends, family, people you work with ever let you down?
Of course.
Do you know there's one guy who will never let you down?
Yes.
I know you know this. I'm so looking forward to get to this because, matter of fact, we're just going to start off like this. I'm so grateful that you're on my podcast, but I've recently learned you have your own podcast.
Yes, I do.
Well, tell us about it, because not only do I want you to tell us about it, we want to get them to tune in.
Okay. Well, I have a podcast called See the Unseen, where I like to bring a little visibility to people who deserve the spotlight. So it's really about people. I spent 30 years of my career advocating for people with disabilities. I worked for the largest complex wheelchair company in the country. And I just would hear their stories and see their lives, and I would just want to share that with everyone. And one of my goals was to create national awareness for people with disabilities. So I met a guy with no arms and no legs. He was a cornhole champion. I was like, that's a cool story. I had a woman who had this little bitty hand, and she hid it for 25 years. And she was really Ruth Rathblott. She was the reason I really wanted to start the podcast as well. There was a lady out of Nashville who's blind. She's like 21 years old. She sings and plays guitar, Sarah Hardwig, and she has sang the national anthem hundreds of times. So that was part of it. And I had, I'd lost my job, and I said, I'm just going to keep advocating for people. That's not going to stop me. And so that's kind of why I started it. I was on Todd Locke's, the Locke's Guys podcast.
Okay, so real fast while you bring that up. First of all, big shout out. Listen, Trust, I know I need you, brother. I know you. Slutty, am I right? But, speaking of that, and here just recently, Kindly Savage.
Yeah.
How, brother, keep being a light. We love you.
Yeah, so I was on their podcast. They had asked me to come on, and I had mentioned that I wanted to start this podcast called See the Unseen. And of course, Todd was like, well, if you don't do that, then, people with disabilities aren't going to get what they need. I was like, hey, don't put that evil on me. Okay, Ricky Bobby. And so, he kind of just pushed me to do it. So I was like, I'd been telling my kids that I was going to maybe do it. And they were like, Mom, you keep talking about this. You've been talking about this for a long time. Just either do it or stop talking about it. So, I just started it, and that's part of it. But the other part was like me sharing my career path and all the things that I've learned in leadership along the way, just because of how I grew up. And then the other part was I'm friends with some singer-songwriters in Nashville, and I love to hear the stories behind the songs. So I wanted to, because people are like, they write for Carrie Underwood and Luke Bryan, and nobody even knows who these people are. And I thought, that's really cool. And then I wanted to share my faith. So it's all things unseen, if you will. So part of me is just like, I love fighting for the underdog. And I guess I kind of felt like maybe I was the underdog growing up. And so that's really where the podcast came from.
Well, I want to say God bless you, and I'll tell you why. I created a Facebook page not too long ago. It's called Stand Up Alton. Now, I don't want to necessarily, we're past that. It was in the paper all over the place with a bar that we had across the street and what's going on. Because I started out as a silent partner. I was, let's say, Shark Tanking a girl for her dream was to own a bar. So my wife and I invested in her. Nobody was even supposed to know our names, just a silent partner. Well, to speed it up, in my opinion, I thought she was getting done wrong, and I became a voice and an advocate for the bar, which led more than that. So then it wasn't anymore about the bar, okay? It's social media, keyboard warriors, whatever it may be. But then I felt like I became a voice and an advocate for the city of Alton because of what we were going through. We were trying to put it out there to like introduce FOIA forms or different things that the general public may not be well aware of, but it's at your fingertips without having to think, man, I got to hire an attorney and it's going to cost all that money. I'm going to drop that topic, but what I'm really saying is thank you, because that's what we talk about, is being a voice and being an advocate for others. And just the title of your podcast, I absolutely love that.
Thank you. My daughter came up with that title.
I love it. So before we move on, I'd like to definitely give you a shout here. How can people find this podcast?
Sure. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Facebook, iHeartRadio, Canyon Star TV, just, pretty much everything.
So there's no reason why nobody could find you.
Right. I would say YouTube is the best place because that's really more video. But yeah, I'm everywhere.
So I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, maybe just a little bit, and you might have even brought it up here just recently. Is there like one particular story that resonates with you that you've heard, whether it be the songwriter or somebody that you've spoke with that just kind of sticks with you? Because it sounds like you're going to have a bunch.
Yeah, I have a lot of stories when I think about songwriters, but I have to give a shout out to Tommy Carlos because I texted him right before I came in here. I actually gave him his poster. He's going to have a big concert in Godfrey. I think it's October 21st or somewhere. It's like October 25th. It's a Saturday. And
we'll post that in the comments to make sure we
awesome.
Get it. Okay.
But so I'll have to talk about Tommy. He was the first person on my podcast. I just love that him and Charlie Brown, wrote a song and, they talk about it on my podcast too, but they were really excited. They wrote like a #1 hit for Montgomery Gentry. Well, Tommy did. And, I know they both wrote a song for Blake Shelton and What I Wouldn't Give, which was a really awesome song. But, they couldn't wait till like Blake Shelton's CD came out. And they tell a story way better than I do. But, they were waiting at Walmart for it to come out and they got the CD and, they go through the line. And Charlie Brown said that, he went through the line and she's like, swiping it, beep, beep. And he's like, guess what? I got a song on that CD. And she was like, debit or credit? Like she could care less or whatever. But anyway, I think that songwriters to me are so cool that there's so many cool stories behind the songs that are, and then they somehow, make it a song. And the only other thing I'll say is like, in Nashville, just this past week, Brett James, who was, a real legend in a songwriter, he, wrote Jesus Take the Wheel and, with Carrie Underwood and 2 other artists. And, I had the pleasure of meeting him. He died in a plane crash with his wife and stepdaughter this week. And so I know that all of the people in Nashville are really mourning the loss of him. He was very talented. He's had, hundreds of #1 hits. And what I loved about him saying is, what, I've written hundreds and hundreds of songs and nobody even knows who I am. But he was a real cool guy, real good looking guy,
Now, are we talking about him or the guy sitting in front of you?
Well,
that was just a little
of course you
for
too.
Trust, y'all. A little ad for trust.
But yeah, it was a real tragedy in Nashville this week. But so I would just say that, there's so many. I would also say Will Nance is a really awesome songwriter. He wrote She's Everything by Brad Paisley. And I love his story. That's probably one of my favorite stories is that he would say that he wrote this song for his wife, Holly. And how, the song, most of the time when you write a song, they want you to, they write them together with other people. But tried to pitch this song, and they said, that's really great, Will, but like we've got the budget for like one songwriter. So go back, write a song, come back, and we'll look at it. We'll listen to it. And he's like, well, what am I going to write about? Well, his wife Holly said, well, why don't you write a song about me? And so he was like, okay. And so he wrote the song, She's Everything. And I don't know if you know the song, but he was, it was all about her, and a real romantic song. And then he pitched it, and Brad Paisley picked it up. And Brad Paisley said, I love the song, but there's a couple words here or there that I want to write about my wife, Kimberly. I want to sing it about my wife. And so they came back and they told, Will and Nancy, they said, well, Will, what do you think? Brad Paisley wants to cut this song. And by the way, it went #1. And he's like, what do you think? And he goes, you know what? You go back to Brad Paisley and tell him that's fine. He can change the words to my song. He goes, because you know what? I don't want him singing about my wife
right.
with thousands of people anyway. So I thought it was a cute little story, and he's very talented, always playing in Nashville as well. So,
but I think that's really cool, because a lot of times you're absolutely right. When we listen to songs today, we just know the artist that sings it. And here recently, right here in the RiverBender area, we recently had Scotty McCreery. And I know
cool.
So he was just right here at the amphitheater, and it was cool that I was blessed to be able to host it with CJ, with RiverBender, and it was really cool listening to the backstory, because I think he was on American Idol, if you remember, but he's the singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
So I just think that's amazing. I just seen the unseen. I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
Yay! So you've learned all the different ways on how to find Melissa and tune in, because it's more than just seeing the unseen. Matter of fact, I think the trifecta of this, what you were talking about, we were talking about the people, we were talking about the music, but then you also said faith.
Mm-hmm.
And how does the faith tie into the scene with the unseen?
Sure. So, well, a lot of things.
We only got an hour, trust.
Believe me. I have been a Christian since I was 11 years old. I gave my life to Christ, and I was baptized then. But I would say that, throughout the years, I had a stronger relationship with God. And then at other times, I didn't have a close relationship with God. And I've always been going to church, so I was kind of in and out. But I just wanted, when I lost my job, that was really hard for me, because my identity was in my work. Like, I just related, this is who I am. If I'm not someone who's advocating for people with disabilities, or, negotiating with health plans, like, who am I? And so it was funny, because the night before I lost my job, I had told my husband, I was a little frustrated anyway with the company at the time. Sure. I said, I felt I was a little resentful. I'd given my whole life to it, and it was a stressful time. And I said, they're going to have to fire me, because I'm never quitting. I said, I will never give up on these people. But I was really frustrated. And so the next morning, I get on a video call, and after 30 years, I'm let go along with 40 other people. To cut, they were looking to cut cost. And of course, I was one of the more expensive employees. So that really hit hard with me, because I think that, I was very well known in the industry, and still am. I'm back in the industry in a different way. But it was like, the people that you think you'll hear from, you don't. The people that you don't think you'll hear from, you do. And I was also on a non-compete, non-solicit agreement, so I couldn't even go work for anybody if I wanted to in the industry for about a year. So it was like, I don't know, it really, that's when I got really close to God, I would say. And I would also say, just living, for self too. My husband and I got married about a year ago, and when we started putting God first in our life, it changed everything for us. So I love our church. I go to First Baptist Church in Bethalto, and our pastor is amazing. I say, prior to that, we went to Lifebrook Church, and Pastor Steve and Marcy, that's a shout out to them. They're in Maine. They moved away in Maine. We got real close to our pastor and his wife, and then they take off and move. And then now
Pastor Matt.
We're really close to our new pastor, Pastor Josh and Bethany. And since, we got into a church group, we meet every other Sunday. He challenges you to do things that are outside your comfort zone. I never loved praying out loud, and, every now and then he'll call me out, hey, pray for the group. I'm like, I don't like doing this, but I got a little better at it, and that's really, how we get better. That's how we build confidence, is doing things that, take us out of our comfort zone. And that's why I did the podcast too, because I wanted to keep doing things that challenged me, and nothing was really challenging me at the time. So, I'd gotten to be like the best at what I did in my industry. So I was like, what else can I do? I'll buy some microphones and figure out how to do a podcast.
And hence it got started.
Yeah, got started. And, I've had a lot of cool people on my podcast. I had the first Golden Bachelor or Bachelorette, Joan Vassos. She was on my podcast. So Tommy Carlos has been on. I've had, a lot of different, I got the guy that sings for Randy Travis, because, Randy had a stroke. And so he was on. I've had a lady who does singing telegrams. She's been on America's Got Talent.
Love this.
So really some cool guests.
So it's really kind of cool. And I know we're going to have to get to a commercial here shortly, but what you're sharing about that podcast, when you remember some of your guests, it's how I started this podcast. My podcast had a mission. What I didn't know is the people and the relationships and the resources you get. And it's like, okay, I had a message, but I'm being blessed by God putting all these other like-minded people around me that we can continue to bless others, because now we have resources that we didn't know was there before. So listen, I know we got to go to a commercial, but before my squirrel, zing, 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 forgets to say this, I just have to share with you, when we bring up faith, your daughter was in my daughter's wedding, okay? And something that stands out, and I really want to bring this up. So I think there was a moment of crisis. Nothing like terrible, but just like the nerves are kicking in. People were like voicing amongst each other. And your daughter went to the group and said, let's pray. So even some of the people that in the group may not have been spiritually or whatever, but your daughter took a moment, heartfelt moment, that when it was all said and done, I got goosebumps. This is good. My daughter shared that experience with me. And I just, that's something I'll always remember your daughter for. It's not like, it's like what I tell people before. If your spirit and you're at dinner and you want to pray over your meal before dinner, where who's watching me, who's going to see me, your daughter took a moment. And what brought her to the moment, all glory to be to God, but your daughter took that moment and just, I can't think of the proper adjective, but I love you for doing it. Hey, listen, we gotta go to some commercials, and we'll be right back.
At Marquette Catholic High School, tradition is more than a word. It's a way of life. From championship athletics to community service, from lifelong friendships to faith-filled values, Marquette students carry a legacy of excellence. Together, we build a stronger community on the field, in the classroom, and beyond. Marquette Catholic, where tradition meets tomorrow. Visit MarquetteCatholic.org and see why Marquette is the right choice for your family.
You won't find a better health club than Nautilus Fitness Center. More cardio, more free weights and equipment, more classes, a swimming pool, and more. If you're serious about your health and want to make a change, then stop thinking about it and visit Nautilus Fitness Center on Industrial Drive in Alton. Don't fall for the hype you get from the other health clubs. Nautilus is the Riverbend's premier health club. Has been for years and will be for years to come. Get to Nautilus Fitness Center and get started on a healthier new you.
But I kept that going, waiting for you to sing. You just didn't know that, did you?
I'm not going to sing.
You can't blame me for trying, everybody. But this is so crazy. So I'm a year plus into the podcast, and I'm telling you, you could almost do a blooper reel that I still can't figure out all the buttons. Welcome back, MJ. Thanks for all your help, John and CJ. I'm loving that. But moving forward, you picked out a few songs. Tell me about the evidence of your goodness. How does that one resonate with you?
Yeah, when you just said, I thought you were going to sing, I'm like, no, but I was feeling like I was going to cry. Gosh, like, I don't want to cry. I guess I never even thought you were going to play that song. The reason I love that song is just like, since I've had a closer relationship with God, I feel like, well, I've always felt this way. It's just that I feel so blessed. And that's why I advocate for people with disabilities. It's just that, I think it's a bad day when I have a bad hair day. And these people are dealing with real challenges every day, how they, get around in life. And, and so to me, I just always felt so blessed that I could walk, to the end of the driveway or whatever. And so when I hear that song, I almost played that for our wedding because everywhere I look, I just feel so thankful. I grew up poor. A lot of people don't know that. I grew up in a very small house in Bethalto. And when it rained, I got my bucket out. And I got about 5 buckets out, and I thought everyone kind of did that. Why we couldn't fix the roof because we didn't have the money to. My dad was a laborer, and my mom worked at the ceramic shop, and it would rain down my bookshelf. And so every time, when I started out, I really worked my way up in the company, and I was passionate about what I was doing. I knew I was helping people with disabilities. And so I didn't try to be some executive of the company. It kind of happened because I couldn't stop doing what I was doing. And I really believed in what I was doing. And so I just became very successful, and, monetarily and then, but I always remember where I came from. And so for me, it's like, I didn't finish college. I went to 3 years of college, and I got married young. And all the rich kids went to college. And so my mom and dad could only, I paid for what I could afford. I went to some night classes. I, taught myself. And then my boss, who I worked for 20 years, the CEO, at one point I said, should I go back to college? He said, no, Melissa, if you love what you're doing, no, keep at it. And I was traveling every single week. I was a single mom. I didn't have time to be going back to college. But along the way, I would say that I was learning, I was growing. I learned a lot from the CEO that I worked for. That's how I kind of, learned what I was doing. And someone believed in me to give me the opportunity to keep going.
Love that. And
so I just thought it got to a point that, yes, I was very successful and I was making a lot of money. And then I would say I got to a point where it almost became an insecurity that I didn't graduate college. And I started working with a leadership coach who changed my life. His name was Tavo Godfredson. And, the company spent about $60,000 for him to spend a year and a half with me. And that was probably one of the biggest blessings because he helped me to overcome that insecurity. So he had asked me at the time, I was working with a lot of really smart people that all came from GE Healthcare, and they were they went to Duke University and, all these Ivy League schools.
Right.
And and so my leadership coach said, well, Melissa, what's your biggest insecurity? And I said, I don't want to tell you this. And he was like, come on, let's talk about it. I said, well, that I didn't graduate college. I went to 3 years, but I just never got my degree. And he said, well, do you want to go back to college? I said, no. He said, well, do you think it'll help you make more money? And I said, no. And he said, well, what's another story you could tell yourself? And I said, well, that I have 30 years of domain expertise that these guys will never have. And he said, well, why don't you start telling yourself that story? And it was just having someone else, I guess, tell me that. And, my son would always tell me, Braden would say, well, Mom, you should be proud that you were successful and you did all this without going to college, without the degree. And I said, see, I thought differently. I thought, am I missing something? What did I miss at college? So part of my goal in life, because I was a single mom, is to put my kids through college. And I did, and I paid for it myself. And I put Kaylee through college. She became a teacher, a third grade elementary school teacher. Shout out to Kaylee. And Braden went to college, and he ended up with a degree in business. And he actually works for a health plan and contracting. And, and I told him, at that time, I said, you can go away to college. I'll pay for the whole thing. Or if you stay home, because I was traveling, you know what? When you graduate, the day you graduate, I will take the difference. Then it was like double the price to go to Illinois or the state of Illinois college. And I said, I will deposit that in your bank account the day that you graduate college. So you choose, but it helped me if you were staying here taking care of our dogs. So he's like, I guess I'm not going away. I was like, that quick? He's like, well, you told me now the money's on the table. So that day I gave him a check and I deposited a big check in his bank account. But I tell you this only because, like, for me, that was a big thing. Like, I wanted my kids to have it easier than I did. And it's really weird because it kind of does. I think it did the opposite. Because, like, Braden will say, sometimes I think he has felt bad for what he has because he didn't grow up without money. I grew up without money. And then I, I guess grind harder or whatever.
Parents, but that's what drives us.
Right. I want my kids, I want my grandkids, to have it better than I did. And I wanted to the reason I wasn't motivated really by money, I was motivated that I could give back to in a bigger way. Like my CEO taught me years ago, like he was very philanthropic. He would give to MDA and all these different, different charities. And I never saw people give away money. I grew up poor. I'm like, if you get money, why would you want to give it away? But then I watched him when his house was mortgaged and he would still give. And that felt so great to be able to give. And so for me, I think it's, I remember too, though, years ago when I didn't have money and, I never found the men that have money. Like, my kid's dad had, I was a stepmom years ago and, he paid child support. And so, he didn't have money. But I remember when I was going to this like marital, like it was like marriages under God or something. And I remember the people at church said, well, you should be giving 10%. And they were giving like, I remember at the time it was like, they said, oh, we give $300 a month. And I was like, $300 a month? That's like my house payment or something. Right. And I'm like, well, that's great for you. But like, I'll be standing the cheese line if we do that. Sure. And I chose that life, but like, we just couldn't afford it. I say this because I get it now. Like, I know that you're supposed to tithe and, 10% and everything. And it, somehow it comes back to you. The more you give, the more it comes back. Not that that's why you should give, but, I just say that because, I do understand what it feels like when you don't have, but I also love to encourage people to know that if I could do it, if I could be successful, other people can too. And there is so much fun. And like, that's why I work hard now. Like, I want to create memories with my family. I want to give back to others. And then I want to do something that I'm passionate about, which is still, now I'm in the catheter business, but it's the same sort of people. It's people with spinal cord injuries who you need catheters. And right now I'm, working with CMS and members of Congress and the OMB on trying to make sure that catheters are not competitively bid and people get what they need. Sure. So it's like, that I think it's just like finding what you're passionate about. And then also, helping others along the way. Yeah.
I've only been talking to you for 20 minutes, and don't smack me, but when you use the word insecurity, and then I don't want to belittle that because a lot of people don't know what you're going through. But like everything I hear from you, driven, passionate. So what I'm telling you, and you just heard it from Melissa, the only thing holding you back is you. And that's my Michael Jackson song that turned everything around for me. Are you ready to make a difference? Are you ready to make a change? Look in the mirror. It starts with you, right?
Absolutely.
Because I'm loving everything that you said. You're being vulnerable on this podcast. You're being accountable on this podcast. But I'm just listening to you in awe, and I'm like, where's those employees today? Because you said you gave 30 years, and today, and I apologize, kids, because my kids are spoiled, okay? But there's like this entitlement privilege thing about working today, but I'm not going to call out our age and generation, what have you. But, you know, it's like us in the car business. Once you're in the car business, you never get out. It's in your DNA. So not only, and I'm going to tell you, especially the life coach, you're amazing. Matter of fact, when I say don't smack me because it's on that blue neon sign right there, you're beautiful. This is encouraging and inspiring. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, woo! Hey, before we, it's hot in here too. Before we go to another commercial, when I start thinking about strength and I just start thinking about all these beautiful things that you're sharing, before we go to the commercial, can you read that for me?
For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life or eternal life.
Now, I know why I went to that after listening to you, but I want to ask you there's so much good word in there. This is the one you picked. Share that with me.
Yeah, I think it's a message of hope that no matter what we've done in the world, you know, I've not lived a perfect life for sure. You know, all the things that we've done wrong, we think that we're not good enough to get into heaven, but that, you know, God sent his one and only Son to die on the cross for our sins so that, you know, there we have hope to that if we trust and believe in him and put him in our heart and ask for forgiveness of our sins, and ask to be saved, that he'll save us, and that there's hope for everlasting life, that when we die, you know, we never really die. Which is another podcast that I had with a guy who had a near-death experience who really helped me strengthen my faith too, is that because at points in my life, my faith has been like, well, how can you believe in something you don't see? But he kind of helped me.
Definition of faith.
Right. And it's not blind faith. It's not like, and that's what I always kind of thought. My mom would always say, well, you just have faith, you know, you just believe. And I was like, well, that doesn't work for me because I'm visual. And it's like, if I can't see it, how am I supposed to believe it? But I also believe that the Bible is God's love letter to us, and that the more we learn and more we read in the Bible, that's how he tells us to live. And that is, you know, to me, like, that is your faith. Like, he's not saying just trust and believe, like, without reading. He's saying, read. This is, you know, I'm teaching you how to live your life. And when we read the Bible, it strengthens our faith. It strengthens our relationship with God and praying every day. And that's what I just got into, a lot of different habits of, like, every morning when I get up, I pray. I look outside and see the beautiful, you know, the beautiful earth he's given us. And that's something I never did before. I think it's just kind of crazy how when you start to have a close relationship with God, like, all these things are like real eye-opening.
I would say visible.
Right.
Because you rest you rest in the moment.
Yeah. Because I'm like, you know, do people even think about, like, you know, how these animals, you know, were created, and how the ocean and the earth and the planets and, like, all the stars. And when you really think about all that, you're like, it is really amazing that he created a very perfect universe for us.
2 weeks ago, I had Josh Crane on the show, and I was asking him, what does he tell people to get away from the trials and tribulations? And he started with, take off your shoes, put your feet on the grass, gaze at the stars, gaze at the beauty. And not only was that a starter, but he says, as you're thinking of grazing at these beauties, now you forgot all about your trials and tribulations. Hey, I'm getting buzzed to go to another commercial. We'll be right back.
I set the thermostat so my house would be warm when I got home from work, but the kitchen is still cool.
At Barrett Heating and Cooling, we stand behind every Lennox system we sell.
My dealer said he'd take care of everything.
At Barrett Heating and Cooling, we understand everyone wants prompt, professional service.
Turns out it wasn't my furnace after all, just a little something blocking the vent.
Pretty smart dog if you ask me. For service you can count on, call Barrett Heating and Cooling.
Lennox, innovation never felt so good.
At Landmark Realty, we're proud to serve the Riverbend area with offices in Godfrey and Jerseyville. Whether you're buying your first home or your forever home, our team is here to guide you every step of the way. And if you're ready to start your dream business, we can help you find the perfect commercial property. Visit us today at GodfreyLandmark.com. Landmark Realty, serving the Riverbend and serving you.
Macias Insurance Agency, providing quality products with extremely competitive prices. As an independent provider, we source multiple companies to offer the best rates possible, covering auto, home, business, and life insurance. Our goal is to provide quality service that meets and exceeds customer expectations. You can rest easy knowing the Macias team is working round the clock to ensure that both you and the most important parts of your life are covered. Our qualified professionals make the insurance process easy so you can live carefree and focus on what matters most. Visit MaciasInsuranceAgency.com today to find out what our team can do for you.
For your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up until I lay.
We can put our hands in the air. There's no shame.
Oh,
no shame.
I will sing of the goodness of God.
Not only is this song beautiful, she is like angelic when she sings this song. I mean, what a great combination. So normally I ask people to interpret this song, but I almost think it's so easy, the goodness of God. I mean, that's what we have this podcast about. It's kind of what you were just sharing before about if we're in the Word, He's teaching us how to love, how to live life the proper way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that song is meaningful to me because I had it played at my wedding.
Okay.
And yeah, so I just love, that's what I walked out to when Andy and I got married and about a year or so ago. And yep, that's it. We were at our church. That's our whole family.
I thought when Trust Family went places that we were, look at this.
Yeah, it was just a small ceremony right after church. I wore that to church. But yeah, it was a really special day.
What a beautiful day. Yeah.
And that's really, what we were, we had lived together for about 6 years, and we had, both of us had been divorced and multiple times. And, we both had a lot of insecurities coming into relationship because, for me, I had a lot of guys that cheated on me, and so when you have a past like that, creates issues, right?
Sure,
and so for us, we were not, living together. I always hear, you're living in sin, right? But I never really understood, like, what does that really mean? And our pastor met with us and before, because we talked about getting married, and he said, well, you're not going to God's not going to bless your relationship while you're living this way. And in fact, he kind of told Andy, he's like, if you want to move out, you can come live in my basement. And Andy's like, I'm not going anywhere. And so we really it forced us to come to a decision. And it's like, are we going to honor God in our relationship? Are we going to put God first? And if we are, we need to get serious about this, because we were basically, we both kind of felt like, we loved each other. We're crazy about each other. But it also always allows you, hey, I got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Cause like you mess up, you make me unhappy. I can just leave anytime I want. And it really forced us to say, okay, what are we doing here? Like, if we believe God put us together and that's God's plan, then we need to honor what God wants for our lives. And so, and it was hard because, I've been married multiple times, and, it's scary because you think, oh my gosh, what, should I really get married again? Like, and I didn't want to get divorced ever again. Like, I'm a hopeless romantic, clearly. And I was like, you know what? He's the perfect guy for me. He's perfect, and he's perfect for me. Just because he reminds me of kind of like, everybody, when you grow up, you say, I'm going to find somebody just like my dad. The women usually do say, I'm going to find someone like my dad. Well, it was like, for me, it was like, I'm going to find someone kind of like my mom and my dad. My mom, because she was my biggest cheerleader, and Andy really is kind of like my biggest cheerleader. And, she passed away in 2010. My dad passed away in 2019. But Andy, when my mom passed away, we had met in 2019, and I have to tell this story because it's probably one of the most romantic, sweetest things that he's ever done, and he's probably never done any of these things ever again.
Guys, get out your pen and paper right now.
Yeah, so when my mom, 2 years before my mom died, she wrote me this email, and it said, life is short. You never know when it's going to end. love each day, live with all your heart, or, something like that. Love with all your heart, enjoy each day. I love you so much, Mom. It was something like that. And Andy saw that I posted on Facebook, and he took that email and he framed it in this like canvas. And I'd only known him like a week. Okay. And he brought this to me, and I was like, of course I started crying, and I'm like, this is the sweetest thing anybody's ever done. It was really so sweet. And so, of course, he was such a gentleman. He opened the door for me. He's old fashioned, even though he's a lot younger than me. But that's how I fell in love with him. And I just knew, but getting back to my point is like, our life changed for the better when we start putting God first in our relationship, in everything. And that's really what our pastor taught us, is that it's kind of like this. When you think about marriage, is that it's God first, your spouse, your kids, and then career. And when any of these things are upside down, then that's not the way God intended marriage to be. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. But I'm really glad that, I got divorced and then found Andy, because like my kids were so, like, they were number one always in my life. And so I probably never did that before. And I don't know that I would have done that. Quite honestly, because I'm like, I'll let a semi roll over my body for my kids or my grandkids. Can't really say I do that for a man. I don't know, but maybe because the men in my life were not like, I don't know. I couldn't see that, but my kids were my whole world in my life. And so, but I do, now, your kids grow up, they move away, they don't need you as much as they used to. Now my daughter.
Now you miss, how was your day?
Yeah. But, and my son just moved out about a couple months ago, which, I cried for a couple days. Kaylee, has been married to her 8th grade sweetheart, Zach. And, I have a grandbaby who's 3, and she's pregnant with identical baby boy twins. So if I look tired, it's because last night she had to run to the hospital. Had her blood pressure checked, but she was all fine. But that was because I didn't go to bed till after 1 o'clock. But yeah, anyway, my point is just that, that song was our wedding song. We started putting God first, and life just keeps getting better and better. Like I've never really allowed, another thing I would say is I've never really allowed myself to like enjoy life, if you will. I do. There were times that I did, but like I almost feel bad for what I have. I don't know if people have that.
What I was going to share with you, because I'm really bad about interrupting, but earlier you were saying this. I worked with a guy by the name of Mark Lemons, and Mark found God, and he was like, put God first. Now, again, I didn't really go to church, didn't really know much of it. And I was like, being a smart aleck, pardon for my verbiage when it comes up. But I'm like, bro, there's no way I'm putting God before my wife. I'm not getting baptized, because I didn't know the meaning of Jesus. I didn't know. And Mark, I got to tell you, you've been a huge impact and inspiration in my life, because part of why and who and what I'm doing today is a lot from your guidance. So what I was getting back is I'm complimenting your work ethic. Okay. My other salesperson said, trust you got life all messed up. He goes, you live to work where you're supposed to work to live.
Right. That was me.
Okay. And that's what I was kind of getting at. So it's like, are you really putting God first? Because this has got to get done. That email's got to get done. But towards the tail end of what you were sharing with us, it's what I preach all the time on this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you exactly what we're talking about. It's one word, and it's called peace. Okay? So when we go back to that crazy business work ethic, and we can't describe how we feel today and what we think, I'm telling you right now, it's peace. Every week, no matter what's going on, I make sure that this podcast goes on, because I'm telling you the importance of this relationship with Jesus, where we talked about it earlier. Every morning, thank you, God, for the air in my lungs. And again, I say it all the time, 320 pounds, 54 years old. I got to go to the bathroom. So I'm saying, thank you for allowing me to put my feet on the ground, just as you're sharing your podcast, Seeing the Unseen. Why do we take it for granted? We don't have to have the 10 fingers, 10 toes, because not everybody's got that. So ladies and gentlemen, start with the small things. Be appreciative. you got to tune every Thursday because listen, we talk about it. If you have anxiety and you have depression and you think it's Groundhog's Day, we're giving you the answer. God is the answer. All I'm hoping to do is to get you from your back against the wall to look in the mirror. The same thing Michael Jackson told me to do, and I'm going to ask you, are you ready to make a difference? Are you ready to make a change? I mean, I dumb it down for me, so I hope I can resonate with you. Everything that you've just shared, from beginning of this podcast to right now, put God into your life. He's your number one fan.
Yeah, I think that that was hard for me too, because I was kind of a workaholic, and we talk about anything that you're putting in front of God or more important than God, and so I really have to work hard not to make my work, not to be grinding all the time. And I found a new peace, I would say, and even like in this last year, if you look at my life right now, I am getting ready. I'm selling my house. I'm building a house. Couple things that they say are most stressful. I just got married a year ago. My daughter's getting ready to have twin baby boys. I am working full time. I consult. I have a podcast. Like, you would think that I would be crazy right now, but I'm not. Like, it is the best.
Can I say, do you thrive in it?
I do, because here's the thing though. I have to make sure that every day I never want to stop doing this, because I did a podcast on how to pray in 3 to 5 minutes. And it was really about, it's ACTS, ACTS. Okay. So A is admiration. I thank God. I say, God, I love you. And then, C, confess your sins. So I say, please forgive me for gossiping. Please forgive me of my sins. Help me to be a better Christian. And then T, thanksgiving. Thank God for all the blessings in your life. And I will go down. Thank you for Kaylee and Zach and baby Shane and the twins. And thank you for Braden and Kennedy. And thank you for my husband, Andy, and Huxley and Addie, and my stepdaughters. And, thank you for my brothers and sisters and all the people on my Bible verse list, which we didn't really talk about. I'll thank God for my house, my old house, my new house, the roof over our head, the food we eat, the clothes on my back. I'll thank God for my puppies. I will thank God for everybody who places in my life, my health. So I'll go through that. That's Thanksgiving. And then supply, S. Ask God for what you need. Fill me up with your Holy Spirit. Help me today. Give me the time to enjoy my life. Like, my CFO told me, I said, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have time to do this. He's like, why don't you pray about time? I was like, what? He's like, well, pray for time. I was like, I've never heard that in my life. Okay, well, I pray, that nobody needs me right this second. Can I enjoy 1 hour at lunchtime with my grandbaby? Like, that nobody's going to ask for me or need me to do something, or I won't feel bad about it or whatever. And it's just miraculously like something will get canceled or whatever. It's just like, and I'm praying about somebody will buy my house. Do I know who's going to buy my house? No. Is my house done? No, it's on the market. Do I have a place to go? No. But I just keep praying, you know what, God, in your timing, in your whoever's supposed to buy my house whatever amount is supposed to be, like, God's continued to bless me financially and like my health and my relationships and everything, that I'm like, if I really am going to have faith, then I have to just believe whatever's going to be is supposed to be. So that's how I get peace, I guess, every day. 'Cause I have never had peace like this in my life. And it doesn't make sense. Like, I should be super stressed out. Now, don't get me wrong. There are moments. The other day, I had so much going on. I also made decisions and I didn't feel good, but it's like nothing like how I used to live.
Prior to.
Yeah. And I think that, that's the thing. People say have faith, but like, if we really do want to have faith, aren't we supposed to then believe that God's plans are better than ours, and that, like, if somebody comes in and disrupts your day, well, then that's how it was supposed to be then. Sure. And I try to remind myself of that. Is like, like when I lost my job, it was like, God, open up the doors where you want me, close the doors where you don't. And all these things didn't work out. And then the thing did work out, and it's been a blessing. Like, I'm enjoying my job. I have a great boss. I
see the energy. So whatever you went through, I see the energy today that God works.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, it's weird because, like I was telling you, when you think like, do I deserve this? Like, I have to check myself. It's like, it's almost scary. I'll pray for about something and then like it just shows up, or somebody God places somebody in my life, that, I was supposed to, a woman who, I won't say who she is on this but she's a celebrity, and I've been helping her, coach her a bit, and she helped me designing my house. Like I had no idea she was even a designer.
That's you being a light. Matter of fact, I want to tell you right now, because of listening to you, I'm going to hold myself accountable right now, because one of the biggest things, and I apologize, I'm going off topic here, but I'm listening to you. It's resonating with me. So one of the number one things I said when I have this podcast is I don't want to be a hypocrite. So for example, a few weeks ago, somebody brought up the word surrender, and I struggle with surrender. Let me explain. When I was asked to be saved, I said no. And the pastor looked at me like, what? And I'm like, well, how can I tell you I accept something that I don't even know what it means? So he asked me a few questions. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Trust got saved. But to me, the word surrender has so much more meaning to it that I already know premeditated, I'm going to mess up. I'm going to fall short. I do ask God to protect me from temptation, but I still mess up.
Sure.
So anyways, where I'm going at with this, to my family, there is no way with you watching this podcast, you're like, my wife calls me Wilbur, so I'm putting it out there, okay? And my kids know me more than anybody. I apologize to my family. I am blessed. Lisa, you're my angel, because the stuff that we are speaking of, I know that my family has seen a huge difference in dad and husband. I know that. But I still fall short. That everything that we speak of and the things that not only do I want our listeners and viewers to do, I'm not doing. So folks, what I'm telling you, I don't have this podcast because I'm perfect. I'm telling you right now that I probably won't go to bed till 3 o'clock this morning, because my mind never stops racing. The good news is that my mind is racing about what's the next project, what can I do? I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning because I'm driven. Adam Marburger, does that sound like you? So I feel bad because I'm listening to this and I want everything that you're saying. So folks, I need work too. But here's where I know I'm not a hypocrite. I love Jesus. He's never given up on me. All these things that I fall short for, when you say I can't walk into a church because the walls are going to fall down, folks, the walls didn't fall down on me. So yes, I have this podcast. Yes, I want you to get the word. But before you get the word, you have to establish a relationship with Jesus. So even when I do fall short, not only am I asking God's forgiveness, I'm asking my family's forgiveness. You're talking about you got twins coming. Emily just had a baby. Mm-hmm. So we got another granddaughter in the house. I guess it kind of goes back to what you say is sometimes you feel guilty. Why and how are we so blessed?
Well, and I would say, and I just want to say that's also why I honestly didn't want to talk about my faith on the podcast, because, and I don't talk about it that much on the podcast. I do here and there, but because I didn't want to be a hypocrite. And I know that maybe, looking at me right now, maybe people might think, oh, she's got it all together. Well, no, I did not. And I many a times when I was single, I drank a lot. And, sometimes I wondered, how am I, not dead,
Sure.
And I hit rock bottom a lot of times because, I always felt like I had to find that guy is going to make it all better. When I find the perfect guy, it's kind of like when I find the perfect job title, when I find the perfect job, when I get the car, when I get the house, when I get the perfect man, I'm going to be happy. That's when I'm going to be happy. But I had all that, I've got all that, and I still wasn't happy. And I think that's where, I will say too, my best friend, this shout out to Denise Carney. She's been my best friend since my freshman year in high school. And, it was her that I would cry, call crying because life just was hard.
Sure.
And,
be grateful you had a Denise.
Yeah. And, and she didn't understand that, but, I think that's why I try to be a voice for that's why I try and help other people. That's why I send my Bible verse. I have a Bible verse list. I send it out to, right now it's hundreds of people. Started out with, 1 and then 5 and then 10. And over the year, it just keeps growing. But she, and I wanted to do my podcast because I want to help people know that they're not alone. And I felt alone. And, for her, she's like, why do you want to do this podcast? I don't understand this. Like, she couldn't understand. And I said, because I had you. I had my daughter. I had Kaylee. I had my sister. I had people that loved me and cared about me. And and if I could hit rock bottom like that and not even want to live at times, like how, what do people do that don't have people? Sorry, I didn't mean to get this emotional, but that's why I want to do the podcast. I want people to know that there's hope. And there's hope in having a relationship with God. That's another thing that, at church we're doing is we have a hope for addiction. That, I kept for years, I'm like, who am I supposed to help? And how I wanted people to know that they could live their purpose and their passion too. And that's when I lost my job. And I'm like, how ironic. And so I kind of went through this of like, how do I help other people find their purpose and passion? And, what people really need, it really comes down to this, is they need hope. Hope for a better future, that no matter where you are, no matter how bad it is, that, God can heal all things.
Yes.
And, I had Andy Raines on my podcast, and he's from East Alton. He was, this is an awesome story. He was he was a pastor for 25 years, a youth pastor. But before that, he was a heroin addict, and he gave his life to God one day at church. And
Hallelujah.
The pastor said, tell me about your demons. And he's like, God can't heal this one. And he's like, he was on heroin and meth. He was on drugs. And the pastor said, God can heal all things. And he prayed with him there, and he never did it again, ever. And that was like, I don't know, some 25 years ago. And, we all cried when we had him on the podcast, because after that, he got to a place too where he kind of felt like he was getting burnt out, and somebody kind of called him out on it and said, I don't see that you're on fire for Jesus anymore. And he was like, what are you talking about? And he said he went to his prayer closet and he prayed about it, and he asked God, give me something that I can be excited about. And he heard God say, you're going to paint. And he's like, what are you talking about? I've never painted anything. Am I going to paint buildings? Am I going to paint cars? What am I going to paint? And he's like, he went to Walmart. He said, got in his car. Okay, God, you tell me I'm going to paint. He got in his car. He went to Walmart. He got all these gallons of paint. And then he threw them out there on a big piece of canvas. Well, the lady said, what are you going to paint? And he's like, this is like literally like 2 a.m. or something like that. And he's like, I don't know, but God told me I'm going to paint, so I'm going to go paint. And so he threw it out. It didn't look great at first. And he said, then all of a sudden he started painting, and he started going to like his church and in front of kids. He's like, okay, what can I do to get their attention really quick? He started painting pictures of Jesus with his hands, and he do it in 4 minutes to a song, like a Christian song.
Okay.
And they are he's painted 8,500 pictures of Jesus all over the country. And they're amazing. I have one in my my office, and he did it on my podcast. But I tell you the story that if God can heal him from heroin, how addictive is that?
Oh.
That we all have addictions. You might say it's drinking, it's smoking, it's, food. It could be, shopping. Like, everybody, everybody's addicted to something. And so we are going to start at our church teaching a class called Hope for Addiction. And, Pastor Tim had asked me and my husband to do it. And I said, I've never done drugs. I don't even know. How would I help somebody overcome addiction? But he's like, Melissa, people just need hope.
Yes.
They just need to know that there's hope for a better tomorrow. So if I would just say, if you're struggling with something, we're all going through something. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's life is perfect. If it is, they're lying to you.
And you don't have to have it all together to get started now.
Right. And I would say just give it to God, because, when you do, if there's something that's just so freeing about it, doesn't mean that you're never going to have problems in life or anything like that. It just means that, you know where to go for your answers.
Well, to touch base on that, because we're almost out of time, it's going to teach you that when the situation and the circumstance arise, your character is going to be different on how to handle it.
Right.
Because that's the piece that we talk about. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, there she is. This has been an amazing episode, and what's really cool, Melissa, I'm going to share this with you. I normally ask you to speak to the audience, to speak to the viewers and listeners, and how can they get started. I never asked you, and you nailed it, girl! The Hope Doctor! So listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to ask you to come back because I know there's so much more we can cover, but my time's up, and they're going to clock me out. So I need you to look out that window. You're going to see a bright neon blue sign. Can you see it on the wall over here?
Yep.
Okay, so on the count of 3, we're going to yell it. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
You're beautiful.
Beautiful.